Did they really just admit this? So we have some very interesting updates in the legal battle between Nike and StockX, and these updates could be very damaging to StockX. We're going to be getting into all of those details in this video, and at the end of the video, I'm going to be giving you my opinion about whether or not it is still safe to buy sneakers on StockX. First of all, if you're new, my name is Josh, and on this channel, I talk about mainly the sneakers that I like and everything that's going on in the sneaker world. If that's what you're looking for, make sure you hit that subscribe button and also give me a follow over on Instagram. So let's do a quick catch up on this case so far. So the beef between StockX and Nike started all the way back towards the end of 2021, and like most bad decisions, it involved NFTs. StockX introduced Vault NFTs. These were digital tokens that were tied to physical products. Buying the NFTs gave you ownership of the product without having to store the shoes in your house. Now Nike sued them for this back in February of 2022 for trademark infringement, claiming that StockX was using its logos and trademarks to sell these products, thereby confusing customers into believing that Nike was somehow involved in this and damaging their reputation. Then this case got even more heated in May of 2022 when Nike doubled down on their allegations and brought more claims against StockX, this time claiming that they are selling counterfeit sneakers and making false claims about verifying authenticity. This was a very serious accusation because Nike was pretty much claiming that StockX's entire core business was a fraud. Now this lawsuit is going on still 2 years later, and we've already seen the huge impact this has had on StockX. They were forced to remove the 100% authentic label that they used to have on their site and instead replace it with a new label calling it StockX Verified, making it clear on their site that this was their own designation and not endorsed by any other brand. Now before we get into these new updates, let me tell you about my most recent experience with StockX. Now a couple of weeks ago, I sold this pair on StockX. These are the Nike Air Humera Jacquemus collab, and if you're wondering why do I still have these shoes if I sold them already, yeah, well, you can guess what happened. StockX pretty much rejected my sale, saying that the shoes had manufacturer defects and a few other problems. Well, can you take a wild guess where I actually bought these shoes from? Yeah, you guessed it. I bought these earlier this year from StockX, and for the last 6 months, they've been just sitting in a box completely untouched. I realized I no longer wanted the shoes, so I resold them back on StockX, only for them to tell me that the shoes that they had passed as StockX Verified a few months ago no longer passes verification. I've also had some of my followers tell me that sneakers that they purchased from the Nike sneakers app were getting rejected by StockX as well. So I'm not sure anyone really knows what StockX Verified actually means, maybe not even their employees. But now let's get into the recent very interesting updates about this case. So there were some court filings made back in August of this year that were recently unsealed. Shout out to Twitter user Sneaker Legal for revealing this. Now this was a filing by Nike's lawyers asking a New York court to rule the case in its favor before the case even goes to trial. And according to Nike, this case should already be closed because StockX admitted to selling 77 fake pairs of Nikes, which Nike had identified as fake. And then Nike further discovered an entire fraud ring that got away with selling over 1,800 fake pairs on the site, and also making further claims that StockX had no idea how many counterfeit Nike shoes it authenticated and shipped to customers. These included several pairs of hype sneakers, including the Ben & Jerry SB Dunks, the Grateful Deads, the Off-White 2s, and these were supposedly passed as authentic even though Nike determined that they were in fact counterfeit. And then came the hammer at the very end of this filing, where Nike claimed that StockX admitted its authenticators cannot determine if a product is authentic, and they also admitted to knowing that they were passing counterfeit footwear and had no idea what percentage of fakes were making it through authentication. Now let me be clear, everything you just read, it was of course very one-sided. All of that came from Nike's lawyers, and all these claims that StockX admitted to this wrongdoing, this is all according to Nike's lawyers. We don't know if this actually happened. It hasn't been proven in court yet. In a statement to Complex, StockX actually did respond to some of the claims, and I'm paraphrasing here, but some of the things they said was Nike's claims are completely misguided. They claimed that they were actually a leader in fighting against counterfeiting, and they even went ahead and provided did some numbers, going on to say that the products in question in this case amount to a mere 0.0004% of the 17.8 million Nike sneakers StockX reviewed while this litigation was ongoing. Now those numbers, to me, I find that statement a bit funny because we know that Nike identified around 70 or so products as being counterfeit, but we don't actually know how many sneakers in total Nike actually looked at. That makes a big difference here. I mean, if Nike only looked at 100 sneakers and found 70 of them to be fake, that's of course really bad. But if they looked at, I don't know, 10,000, 20,000 sneakers, then identifying 70 of them, that is only around less than 1%. So context really matters here, so I wouldn't pay too much attention to those numbers. But I will say, of course, if the story is true, if the court does rule in Nike's favor and StockX actually admitted to all these things, then I just don't see how StockX can come back from this. Especially the part about knowingly passing counterfeit sneakers as real. I mean, that's pretty insane. Now, I'm not at all surprised that StockX has a problem with verifying every sneaker is authentic, and neither should you guys be surprised. I remember watching an interview by Josh Luber, who was the founder of StockX several years ago, and he said this.
And by the way,
55 pairs in an hour,
also,
is that right? You have to authenticate 55 pairs in an hour?
There's not a hard number like that.
Okay.
It's different depending on who you are, because there's different levels of seniority, what shoes you're doing, what products you're doing, where you're at. It is true that a single sneaker authenticator can see 500 pairs in a day. That's not crazy.
Yeah, he said that it's pretty normal for an authenticator to look at over 500 pairs of shoes per day. Now, if these authenticators are doing literally nothing else, they're just standing there just staring at shoes for 7 hours straight, that still averages out to much less than 1 minute per sneaker. Now, personally, I've never worked as a sneaker authenticator, so I don't even know if that's enough time or not to verify if something is authentic, but it did sound a bit crazy to me, especially considering how good replica sneakers are nowadays. Now, I have to take the other side here as well. Even though it sounds like I'm just knocking StockX in this video, I have to be honest, I actually really like them. I've used them so many times over the last few years, and I have to say in over 90% of cases, I have a pretty good experience. Will I continue to buy from them though? Well, yes and no, and let me explain. I've said this before, when you consider just how good the quality of replica sneakers are nowadays, anytime you decide to buy a popular sneaker on any sneaker reselling platform, not just StockX, you're taking a risk. And I think the risk is the highest when it's a very popular sneaker, a very popular mainstream sneaker. I would put every Travis Scott release in this category, some Nike collabs on the SB Dunks, some hype Jordan collabs. It's actually pretty rare to find fakes of the non-mainstream sneakers, such as Asics pairs or like a Hoka or something like that. In fact, the first time I saw pairs of knockoff New Balances was when the Protection Pack launched. And that's because those were really the first pair of New Balances that really went mainstream. You saw the hype beasts who previously wore Yeezys were now wearing New Balances all of a sudden. So counterfeiters wanted to take advantage of that, and that's why you started to see a lot of fakes of those shoes. But nowadays, there just aren't as many hype sneakers as they used to be, so the incentives for these counterfeiters are just not there like they once were. I mean, if the real stuff is not selling out, why bother making fakes of products that people don't really want? So the shoes that for the last several years I have just absolutely not bought from reselling platforms are in fact those hyped ones that I talked about. You can definitely look into some local sneaker Facebook groups, or there's a lot of people on Instagram who are verified sellers, and I think that's a lot more safer to go that route. I know there are some reselling platforms, for example, like eBay, which provide an authenticity guarantee, which means that you could buy the shoes from there, and if you find out that you did in fact get fake sneakers, you can actually ship the shoes back and get your money back from the seller. But just so you know, I am saying that the risk of buying a fake sneaker, I don't think it's higher on one platform over another. I don't think one platform, for example, has better noses or something. They can really sniff out the fakes better than the other ones. I think the risk is pretty much the same across all these platforms. So just keep that in mind. If you are buying hyped sneakers, there's always going to be a risk, especially nowadays. So do make sure you're buying from trusted sellers only. But what I will continue to use StockX for, and that I have continued over the last few years, is I do buy the less popular sneakers on there. In fact, I use StockX as a place to find a lot of steals, a lot of sneakers for under retail. I think it's great for that. All these shoes all in one place. Maybe some under the radar shoes that released a few years ago and you missed out on them and now you want to get them. I think these types of regular GR releases of sneakers are perfectly safe to buy from most of these platforms, and you don't have to worry too much about it. And personally, I do find StockX to be the most user-friendly platform, and also just from a customer service point of view, I always have had very quick responses from their customer service. So I am still going to continue using them. Yes, I do believe that all these platforms are making a decent effort to make sure that they're not passing fakes. But there's only so much you can do, I think, if the replicas are just getting better and better. Hopefully one day we might be able to see blockchain technology combined with sneakers somehow, so we could even verify the authenticity of each shoe ourselves. But until then, I do think that for most releases, for most general releases, the platforms are perfectly safe to buy from. It's just those super hyped ones, those are the ones I would worry about. Do let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about this whole situation, on this whole case between StockX and Nike? What are your plans now? Are you planning on continuing to use them to buy shoes? And like I said at the top, make sure you follow this channel and follow me on my Instagram, because that's where I'm the most active. Thank you guys so much for supporting my channel and for watching this content. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.